Welcome to the Simply Smart Business Podcast. I'm your host, Nicki, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Dominic DeMaria here with me today. Dominic is the social media director within the marketing department at Contractors Wardrobe, and he's also the marketing director at his family business, The Drugless Doctor. Thank you for being here, Dominic.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. And like we were just chatting, it's 6 a.m. your time. So thank you so much for making the time.
Of course.
Awesome.
Have my little
Gotta have the coffee or tea. Yes, I love it. So today we're going to be chatting about some things that are unique to you, including being in a family business. That's huge. Kind of balancing those business relationships within the family, outside the family, integrated marketing, and having multiple passion projects going at once, which is really interesting to me. So let's dive in and get started with a little bit of background. So everybody starts somewhere, right? Tell us a little bit about how you got started and where your story began.
So I grew up, currently I live in Los Angeles. So we're taping this in April of 2025. So I actually moved out here 16 years ago in a few weeks. So prior to that, I grew up in the Midwest in Cleveland, and my parents, well, my dad is a chiropractor and my mom ran the business. So from a very, very early age, I was asked to help out. And it was one of those things looking back now of just the effort that needs to go into growing a business. And my parents would attend seminars probably every other month with their chiropractic mastermind or whatever. And looking back now, it was like it never stops.
Since early on.
Well, maybe not early on, but definitely as life would have it. So they did an amazing job of raising my brother and I. And just for what it does take to run a small business and a family well. But then I really got a taste of life when I actually moved back to Ohio the first year after college. Like that was very unexpected. And like I thought I was going to be living the New York City PR life, but just like that at that time did not work out. And so that year, so this was, like I said, the first year out of college. I did not think that I would be working the front desk at my parents' business. Like that was not in the cards.
Not in the cards.
But, throughout that year, like I had made some lifestyle choices in college that were probably not the best for my own health.
As we do.
I was living those ramifications. Like, and so that in that year, I just saw what it took to like run a business from a perspective of actually having a marketing degree of like, okay, things cost money. If like we don't hit like it was the okay, we are a cash-based practice. So we actually like the goal is to help people, but also people need to come in to get helps. So how are we going to reach that? So my dad and my mom are both very media friendly. So they've always been on radio, television, and like my dad had just started writing books. And so throughout that year, I just really, really, really was kind of in awe of just all of the moving pieces. And as life would have it, I worked with them for a year and then I transitioned to, I wanted to do something crazy. And I went to Japan to teach for a year. But I will say this, in all of that, my parents, so the day that I'm leaving for Japan, which was crazy. So that year was just myself, my mom, and my dad. My brother was doing his freshman year of college. So we're having just like our final conversation prior to like me going, and they said that when I was like graduating college, they were praying for that I would have a mentor when I would go to New York or something. And then they said that we didn't realize that we would end up being your mentor for that year. So like we're crying. And yeah, so um that year in Japan kind of like was a very eye-opening year of just like international work. And the organization that I worked with took care of my visa. They provided housing. I paid for the housing, but they took care of housing and all that. And I still had the international bug, you could say. I ended up pursuing my MBA, and fate would have it, there was a school in Paris that was an English speaking school. And it was an MBA intensive, a year, 13 months, but then I had to do a thesis. So again, I thought I was going to be going to New York, working for like the W Hotel corporate, but that did not work out, which is fine. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do a thesis and I have no idea what I'm going to do it on. So, as life would have it, I was like, Mom and Dad, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I went back home to Ohio. That was definitely not thinking that was going to be in the cards.
Right.
So this is circa 2008, 2009. So there was kind of like a lot of self-branding that was kind of like talking, like social media was just starting and all that.
Twitter was
So,
huge.
oh yeah. So I did for my thesis, I actually talked about, and I look at this, I have my thesis.
Oh my goodness.
So how the proliferation of the Dr. Bob brand is primed to become the next icon in the health and wellness industry. So I spent the next 4 months doing a deep dive on my dad in the practice, and pretty much like I used a lot of the theory that I learned in grad school, just international marketing, branding, and used that to just really pick and like figure out like the madness behind not the madness, but like what makes someone click in an audience. So so it's almost 16 years later. And it's so from that I moved out here, and I've always utilized marketing to do like branding and help with the Dr. Bob brand. And even with that, I did an ad agency with a few friends for the first few years that I was out here, and we used him to like brand him in, like he had never been like a logo branding elements and all of that. So we even hired a coloring specialist of like the colors that like align with the brand. And yeah, so like from an
amazing.
So that was like around 2010. So like since then I've been able to be the ghostwriter for a number of his books.
Yes.
And then my dad and my mom now live in Florida, and my brother and my sister-in-law are also chiropractors, and I work with them. So it's like people call us the empire, which, you know, there's many moving pieces to a business.
Yes, that's incredible. What a cool story. I love that. So it sounds like even though like many stories, even though it didn't end up how you wanted, it sounds like you're really happy with the way that things ended up, and it really truly came full circle for you.
Yeah, it has been a learning experience. And then, but what has helped is that, like I said earlier, that both everyone in my family, like I really am a camera shy person, but everybody else likes to be in front of the camera. I'm usually behind the camera.
You're the director.
But it helps that a lot of them are one take wonders. So there's just like little things where like it all comes together, but also that part is very huge when it comes to like time and just training. And
Sure.
yeah, I'll tell people what to do, but normally I'm like, I just want to be in a corner.
You have the vision and everybody
Right.
else can follow through on that vision. I
Yes.
love that. We've got to have both, right? Got to have both. Awesome. So you have sort of this multi-faceted life, as far as I can tell. You've got the family business at the Drugless Doctor, and then you've also got the work at Contractor's Wardrobe. So I'm just curious, how do you make that all work? Because I know a lot of people will say, well, I just do it. You just get it done, right? But is there a
So
method? Is there a balance that you've struck?
my balance is, so prior to joining Contractors a few years ago, I had some extra free time, you could say.
That's nice.
So in that time, I was able to, let's say, really automate the druglessdoctor.com e-commerce. Now, like, do updates need to be made like yearly? Yes, but like from a workflow foundation standpoint, I was really able to, let's say, automate that the best that I could. And then it's just like
Amazing.
refreshes every year. So like, I'm very grateful for that extra time that I had. So, I am a morning person, and it really does come to time management. So I know if I have to leave my place between like 6:50 and 7, I need to at least spend 30 minutes like doing all the socials for Drugless Doctor, like before I leave. And then Sunday, I'll take care of anything that requires more of my attention. So I can't do, let's say, 3 hours of work for any like Anthony or Kason or my parents during the week. Like, I will be like, that's a Sunday situation. Usually, and then Saturdays are for me. Like, I do not work on
Nice.
Saturday. That is like my refresh day. But like, Sundays would be the not catch up, but it's like the day that I devote to the family business.
Yeah. 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 I'm very similar in that I like to, at my day is Saturday. I really like to do my own marketing. Things are quiet. You're not getting the emails and the phone calls. And then Sunday is kind of my day to chill and hang with my family. So I totally get that. And I think too, it's interesting because I know a lot of entrepreneurial types typically like to say, weekends need to be open, but I think there's some sort of beauty in having a little bit every day rather than having to shove everything into Monday through Friday. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And then also to the point, like, I've read, and like, this is just works for me in my stage of life right now. It's like, I will never do a 16-hour day because, like, I don't, between the amount of, let's say, back and forth that sometimes needs to happen, and then between the actual work that I am responsible for, that is not 16 hours. Like, what are you, especially with tools that are available to us today to use, like, I don't feel the need to say I work 16 hours to work 16 hours. I think you can maximize a lot between like a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6. So that's just where my thought process is now in terms of like that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. The thing is, everybody says, oh, time management, just manage your time. So speaking of time management, I know that a lot of just business people in general, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a marketer, just business people in general talk a lot about time management. Are there any tools or strategies that you've put into place that really help you with time management?
So to answer your question, not really. Because it seems like I think I've created a system where I'm like, okay, this is how my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday look, and Sunday. So usually Mondays at Contractors is all about social media, like planning for the week, figuring out just what has to happen. So it's like that day specifically is devoted to that. Tuesday so I send the schedule for the week to my boss Tuesday morning, The executive team reviews the posts because we're a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Once I hear, or if I don't hear anything, my assumption is I'm just going to then create the copy, schedule everything. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is working on whatever needs to be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some new products that are being released. So that is reaching out to vendors, it's negotiating with vendors. So every day in manufacturing really is different.
Yeah.
And so and I kind of like after being there for a few years, like mentally, I just know how much time a project is going to take.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at a place now where the curveballs that come, I kind of have trained my brain what to do with the curveballs and like so to answer your question, I don't have like a system, like I don't have like a notion, or I do have like a few apps. Do I use them? Not really, but like before I leave every day, I usually write what I have to do the next day in a
I
top
love
of
that.
the list. Like in our previous conversation, like I am an old school, like I like to write things down.
Yeah.
Like I definitely
Me too.
have an old, not even an old way of thinking, but it's like this works for me. Like I like to write with a
Mm-hmm.
pen and my planner. Like
I
that.
think a little bit of like that tactile, like there's something to
Yes.
like in college, I would always rewrite my notes. That's how I studied.
Yes.
So there's something to that.
Like, and I like my own penmanship, so I like to see like
Yes.
so, but I do make that a habit is like, so on my desk when I get there, like this morning, I'm going to see the list that I wrote for myself yesterday before I left of like, this is what I have to get done. But then when I am done with that list, I don't think about it because like I've made sure that everything is completed and yeah. So
Amazing. Yeah. And so it sounds like just getting a sense of the things that need to be done and understanding how much time they actually take versus how much time you think they're going to take. I think that's a big disconnect, always has
right.
been for me anyway, until you get that habit nailed down of,
Mm-hmm.
this is how long I think this project is going to take versus how long it might actually take. Are there any pointers you have for that or other than just, kind of gauging your time?
I think if you, oof, um, pointers. So I think the pointers would be, especially if you work in a team environment, I think to be as direct as you can be about the project scope. So, like, if I am your project manager, I'm going to be as detailed. So I'm not getting an email from you every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that would save, I think, both of us time. So it's like, obviously, there's going to be more time put on in the beginning, but, and like, there would be time for any conversation. There's always like, need to make yourself available. But I think that sometimes the disconnect is not putting in as much detailed, like in the beginning.
Right. That balance
Yes.
of giving people
Scope of work. Yeah.
and enough information so that they can succeed without having to do any micromanagement throughout the process. Yeah. So one of your big pillars, if you will, is you mentioned business and relationships. So I think that bodes really well here to sort of segue into as far as why is that so powerful for you other than the obvious? I mean, why is it uniquely powerful for you?
So I think that you never know when you are going to need help or you are able to help somebody else. So, we could do an entire podcast and that, but then also at the same time, I always like to ask questions and learn about somebody and be there, not have an agenda. So for example, quick story is had coffee with somebody 3 years ago in LA, just and haven't seen them, talk to them since. And there was something that I knew that they could help me with. And like this was a few months ago. So I was like, I haven't talked to them in 3 years. Like,
It's a good chunk of time.
and just sent a text. And I'm also at the point now, like, I don't say, I hope you're well. Like, because
Mm.
that, to me, that's kind of
That's
being
always my
inauthentic.
line.
Okay. So it's like,
I'm gonna
hey,
stop saying it now, though.
hey, so I'm gonna ask you for something. I'm just like, it's one of those, it's like, I'm using
Yeah.
humor. I was like, yes, I'm going to ask you, are you able to help me in this situation?
Direct what you need.
And then jokingly, so they were able to, but also it's like, so for just being able to be there for somebody, to help without like an agenda. So if that is in LA, taking somebody to the airport, it's just because parking is very expensive there. And even though I'm definitely an introvert, I definitely like quality time is definitely one of, let's say, my love languages. So like life is busy. I
Nice.
would view that as like I'm getting able to spend time with somebody because I don't know. Like I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I don't really just want to grab a coffee because life is busy and it's like I have to get stuff done. But also working with family and relationships, it's like we are in this like business together. So it's like their ask is for me to help them so we can go to the next level. And it
Mm-hmm.
is just in times of disagreement, I'm a big proponent of say what you need to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Get it on the table.
please do not sugarcoat anything just because it's like if you bottle things up, it really will not be in your benefit in the future. I think like with our family business, we really strive to have open communication.
Mm-hmm.
And even if like there might be some disagreement, like which I have learned in time, like I did have an issue with myself. I would be like, if I don't do this anymore, but like there was a time where my mom would have ideas and I would just say like no immediately. And then like she called me out on that, which I'm glad she did. But a lot of the ideas that we have had have actually come from her. And so
Mm.
it's like I've had to humble myself of like everybody has ideas. They might
Mm-hmm.
not be what your ideas are, but let's say, you know, within the idea, you can craft and tune it to like the audience that you have. That was definitely a teaching moment for me.
Yeah.
Coaching moment.
That's amazing. I love that you can now say that too, right? A lot of us are like, I made a mistake. I'm not going to talk about it. But that's amazing that you can take responsibility for that and say, I needed that. And I mean, when it comes to ideas too, especially with your family, sometimes there's going to be not so great ideas and sometimes they're going to be wonderful
Right.
and sometimes they have to sort of evolve, probably,
Right.
I'm guessing, to get to that point of that next great idea.
And it's like, I would never say to anyone that that is a bad idea. Like, I am definitely an advocate of watching the words that I say.
Mm.
Like just in everything, it's like if even in a brainstorming session for anything, it's like, okay, like maybe we'll use this another time.
Hmm.
And just like pivot of because in your mind you're like, absolutely not.
That's an inside thought, though, right?
So but then even with contractors and relationships, it's
Hmm.
I think just doing what you were asked to do, and that builds trust. And then when
Hmm.
you get trust, then this happens. And then, like, it really is like there's no secret formula. It's
Hmm.
like, just day by day, essentially. And then I would say the ultimate, like, gain of trust, let's say with contractors, is a few years ago, I was able to so October is National Manufacturing Month. And since I've been there, we've always tried to do some sort of new video throughout the
Hmm.
company. So this coming October will be 2 years since I interviewed the founder of the company and like really just spent the day with him. And I know
Amazing.
that does not happen for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big deal to get in their brain and understand the whys and wherefores.
But with that, instead of like asking, because I want to make it about the company. So, for example, I asked a number of people at contractors who had been there for certain amounts of time that they would tape the question, like, and then he would answer it. So it's like I was able
Mm,
to include a lot of people.
amazing.
And but yeah, spending the day with him, I think, was the an honor. I feel like it really is the little things that like
Hmm.
if build trust and loyalty. So
Yeah. It's that snowball effect, right?
snowball
Just those
effect.
little pieces,
Absolutely.
like you
Yeah,
said, it just builds over time, and that's the best way to build it. It's funny because I do a lot of contracting myself, and when I meet a new potential agency to work with, they say, "How do we get started?" I'm like, honestly, we just have to get started. And
right.
so, we work on little things over time, and you start to trust me. I was like, I usually say that that's exactly how we get started.
And especially I'm a private person, so
Hmm.
it's one of those things where I think one of the things that has helped me is I'm not trying to get into your dirt. Like, I
Mm.
don't care. Like, I'm not going to ask you questions that is going to be like, And like, sometimes there's that fine line where you would think that that should be common knowledge to not do that. But I think, especially in today's like digital first, social media first lifestyle, it's like some people just don't want to air their business.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with somebody that works in publicity, marketing, and everything. So unless you tell me, I'm not going to ask you
Mm.
anything that is even going to be like remotely personal. And I think that that has helped like just receive like, okay, comfort. Like, I'm not going to ask you
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's none of my business.
Yeah. Do you notice that people are actually more open with you because of that?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so it just helps build that
Yeah.
trust and
I'm
relationships
like, I'm not
even
going to
more.
say anything.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing. And because you're right, it's more common than not these days, even in a business atmosphere, to see that people just want to dig a little deeper than others are
right,
comfortable with. And it's important to respect those boundaries ultimately, and
right.
that builds
That's
trust
really,
as well.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to building that trust in marketing,
Yeah.
how do you go about that?
So the one example that I will give you with that is reviews.
Mm,
And so for we'll take the drugless doctors as the example for this.
hmm
So with health, you go to my family's business because you have a health situation that you want to take care of. You also want a positive result.
Right.
Like, you can do as many like social media videos, reels, TikToks,
hmm
amazing, good for you. But if I have a health situation, I want to see that this is going to be resolved.
hmm
And so right now we have for the Ohio practice above 300 five-star reviews.
Amazing.
And for the Naples practice, not as many, but they are all like positively reviewed. And then it's also responding to. So I think making sure that if you are going to leave a review, we will respond. But then also, as somebody who has a need, you want to make sure that need is taken care of. And so with that, we get media releases, but like we also ask people to do a video testimonial. Usually one of the doctors will join them and just ask very light
Perfect.
based questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Those are huge.
Right. So it's interesting because those are usually the least liked, but then they're also the most like personable though, because it's a real life person who has had a positive response. So yeah, just real people like wanting to be healthier.
Yeah. That's amazing. And do you notice just in social media these days, do you notice that people still view that content but aren't necessarily engaging with it as much?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
People are always watching. That
Hmm.
is always. So in going back to the video that I did with the founder from contractors, somebody that worked at the organization 30 years ago commented on our LinkedIn page. So it's like I asked like one of the people that I work with, I was like, who? They're like, they were here a long time ago. So it's like they might not like, which is fine. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do, but people are always watching, always watching. You know, there's the authenticity is real, but also I think you have to have some level of like, okay, perception of what you put out there, like, you know, people from your past and potential clients. It's like, okay, is this going to really benefit us?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it has to
yeah.
benefit everyone, right? It has to benefit the business and it has to benefit the audience. And so how do you marry those two? How do you manage with the content that you create?
So I pretty much what I would do is, well, with contractors, I do the um I send the request or the schedule, so they're allowed to say whatever. But then even let's say, so prior I did social media for an LA mega church,
Hmm.
and we needed, like, I was blessed with um amazing photographers that would volunteer their time and everything. So, but in that, LA is a transient city,
Hmm.
and um people sometimes leave the organization maybe not on the best terms, or like
Mm.
they just don't go there or they move. And so it's like you have to, on top of everything, you have to be aware of your surroundings. It's like, okay, if I post this, okay, this person doesn't work here, this person doesn't go here. If you post this, are we going to get like some sort of negative comment? So it's like your brain, especially if you are in a people first like organization that posts a lot of pictures of people, I
Mm.
think there is just going back to the trust. And it's like, okay, if I post this, this person is still connected to our organization in a
Right.
positive manner. So it's just one of those things where I think somebody that is in a position of social content publicity needs to just be aware of, if people are going to be involved, what is that person's relationship with the company?
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. And when it comes to negative reviews, I know this is always difficult for businesses and business owners. What's your take on negative reviews?
So the take is, my boss and I last year put together uh, a document where if it's 5 star, this is the, so before I say, we'll preface it, but I tried to make everything as organic as possible. We have a structure for every 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 star review. And so there's definitely multiple variables that go into replying to a post. It's not just like, we're sorry that this happened to you.
Hmm. And please don't talk to us anymore. We don't want to hear it.
So like we definitely have a skeleton of like what we will say, but then, you know, something might be product oriented where somebody that is in like the account side, I would need their help just because it's like,
Mm.
okay, I have to be very specific in this response in terms of like product measurements, height, panels, all this stuff. But then maybe if it's a issue with somebody on the CW team, but sometimes it's usually not an issue with them. It's the people just sometimes need to vent.
Hmm. Yeah. Having a bad day,
Right.
the
Just like,
stars are not
what are we
aligning.
going to do with this? So we always offer a solution to contact us directly. But we do like, that is something that we spent like probably a month fine tuning, was our just response list. So
Amazing.
love a 5-star review. But even in that review, like sometimes, not that I notice things, but it's like, how can you make this more personal? So sometimes some organizations just be like, dear value customer. I'm like, no, that's not going to work for
Yeah.
me. So I would
Yeah.
always be like, hello, Nicki.
Mhm.
Hello, Sam. So
Mhm.
it's like, I actually see you as a person and I'm not an AI bot or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, if somebody gives their name, I'm going to respond with their name. And I think it's
Mhm.
just that level of service.
Amazing. Yeah. So you always respond to it. I know, like I said, a lot of business owners, I've gotten this question a lot over the years is how do I deal with negative reviews? What do I do? Do I just delete it? And my thought
No.
is never delete it. Always respond and respond publicly so people can see you actively trying to fix the problem.
There was one person that I went to a talk with one time where she says, respond one time. So get all the
Mhm.
facts and just respond once.
Mhm.
So I've usually have always used that as like my benchmark.
I like that. So that it's not this kind of
Right.
back
No,
and
back and forth.
forth
Yeah.
push. Yeah, that makes sense. Amazing. I love that. Well, I want to start wrapping up because I want to be cognizant of your time here. And thank you so much for all the valuable information
Absolutely.
and the stories. It's been amazing. What's the best way for our listeners to connect with you online or learn more about you?
As an introvert, I would say don't, but
Please don't contact me.
please don't. So LinkedIn, Dominic DeMaria in Los Angeles. And then for my family's business, druglessdoctor.com. And then for Contractors Wardrobe, like us on social at Contractors Wardrobe.
And I'll, of course, include all those links in the show notes. Do you have any final words of wisdom or encouragement for any of our listeners?
Well, this is my first podcast that I've ever been a guest on, so thank you.
Amazing.
Any encouragement would be anyone who is between, let's say, just graduating college to their 30s, trust the process, show up every day. And as simple as this is like, do the best that you can do with excellence every day. That really is, I wish that's it. Like
Yeah.
that is
I love that. I tell my kiddo, work hard, be kind. Those are my two
Yep,
rules.
that's it. That
It's
is it.
very simple. We make it
Yeah.
harder than it needs to be. So,
we're training
and that's
for
what I'm all about is being simple. So fantastic.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Dominic. We so
course.
appreciate you. And of course, subscribe and follow Dominic and keep learning about all the amazing business tools at your disposal.